content of this program is intended for people who are blind and print impaired. Hello and welcome to Heard Any Good Books Lately? Our February 2025 edition, a program from the North Carolina Reading Service. I'm George Douglas. This program is brought to you by the Friends of the State Library of North Carolina, Accessible Books and Library Services. An organization of citizens, volunteers, and patrons all interested in supporting the library and the services it provides. Now, the Friends Group was founded in 1989 and now has more than 300 members across North Carolina. If you'd like to join the Friends Group yourself, we'll have information on how to do that later in this program. This program is all about books available from the State Library of North Carolina, Accessible Books and Library Services. The library has more than 86,000 titles in its collection. Books and magazines are available in large print, braille, and talking books as well. The library also has more than 11,000 patrons across the state, and if you're not a patron and are interested in becoming one, well, I'll have more information at the end of this program about that as well. This month we'll look at some of the most popular books checked out in the month of January at the State Library of North Carolina, Accessible Books and Library Services. We begin the program today with a look at a book called The Housemaid is Watching by Freida McFadden. From New York Times USA Today best-selling author Freida McFadden comes the next installment of the unbelievably twisty, tension-packed, and globally best-selling Housemaid series. Now, this book can be enjoyed as a standalone read, and once you start, it will have you up all night racing through the pages until the final explosive twist. You must be our new neighbors, Mrs. Lowell gushes and waves across the picket fence. I clutch my daughter's hand and smile back, but the second Mrs. Lowell sees my husband, a strange expression crosses her face. In that moment, I make a promise. We finally have a family home. My past is far, far behind us, and I'll do anything to keep it that way. I used to clean other people's houses. Now I can't believe this home is actually mine. The charming kitchen, the quiet cul-de-sac, the huge yard where my kids can play. My husband and I saved for years to give our children the life they deserve. Even though I'm wary of our new neighbor, Mrs. Lowell, when she invites us over for dinner, it's our chance to make friends. Her maid opens the door wearing a white apron, her hair in a tight bun. I know exactly what it's like to be in her shoes, but her cold stare gives me chills. The Lowell's maid isn't the only strange thing on our street. I'm sure I see a shadowy figure watching us. My husband leaves the house late at night, and when I meet a woman who lives across the way, her words chill me to the bone. Be careful of your neighbors. Did I make a terrible mistake moving my family here? I thought I'd left my darkest secrets behind. But could this quiet suburban street be the most dangerous place of all? Sounds like a pretty interesting plot there. It's called The Housemaid, and it's by Freida McFadden. I should say it's part of the Housemaid series. It is called The Housemaid is Watching, and it's a brand new one by Freida McFadden. Now let's take a look at another new book. This one is by the very popular author David Baldacci, and it is called Simply to Die For. And we're going to read here from a review that was done by Ray Palin just a couple of months ago in November 2024. Prolific best-selling author David Baldacci has a number of successful series to his name, but the 620 Man series featuring Travis Devine is fast becoming one of my favorites of his. The prior installment, The Edge, was by far one of the best thrillers of 2023. The latest, To Die For, continues the path of excellence that already has been carved out for it. Travis, a former Army officer and now Homeland Security agent, barely escaped with his life following the fatal small-town events he faced in Maine. Well, once again, he is sent on a mission that eventually places him in yet another deadly small town. Travis's boss, Emerson Campbell, needs him to head to Seattle and assist the FBI in escorting a 12-year-old girl to a meeting with her wealthy uncle, who is awaiting trial on multiple RICO charges. Betsy Odom recently had to endure the horror of watching both of her parents die in front of her. Danny Glass, her only living relative, has applied to become her new guardian. Travis briefly came into contact with Danny during wartime when Danny was responsible for saving his unit during a skirmish. He is also dealing with a mysterious note slipped into his pocket in the airport from the woman he knows simply as the girl on the train, who initially had tried to kill him while on a mission in Europe. Knowing she is out there while he is traveling far from home on this new assignment does not sit well with him. Betsy is thrilled that Travis is there, as she is not very fond of her current handler, FBI Special Agent Ellen Saxby. As a result, Travis will escort Betsy by himself to the meeting with Danny to officially discuss his application to take over her guardianship. Of course, Travis has a lot of questions about Danny's alleged criminal activities. He is also curious about how Betsy's parents died. The police report claim it was a drug overdose, but Betsy and some friends of her parents vehemently deny that. This makes him wonder who might have wanted them out of the picture and why. The one thing that is clear to Travis is that Danny barely knows his niece, and she does not seem terribly enamored of him. When a quite shady man approaches Travis looking to shake him down for dirt on Danny, he refuses, only to find out that this same individual was stabbed to death in a bar that night. Travis works with Detectives Stephen Braddock and Beth Walker on the deaths of Betsy's parents, the most recent slaying and their obvious connections. It becomes evident that it may be more than just Danny behind these murderous deeds, which is confirmed when Travis goes to the small town of Ricketts where the Odoms died. Everyone comes across as highly suspicious in Ricketts, which seems to be living well beyond their means with a police force housed in an upscale building and equipped with all the best modern gadgetry. Travis does not trust the wheelchair-bound police chief or his wife, who happens to be the town mayor. And on top of that, a few thugs get the drop on Travis and attempt to take him out of the game. Only his quick thinking and experience get him out of this situation, along with some backup from the girl on the train. This wild ride continues to surprise at every turn. To Die For is an addictive read and supports statements I have made for years about David Baldacci being incapable of writing an uninteresting novel. These 6:20, and that's like 6:20 a.m. the time, man stories are not to be missed. To Die For by David Baldacci, and that was a review that was written by Ray Palin in November of 2024. Sounds like a good one. Now let's take a look at another new book. This is a brand new one by Louise Penny, very popular author that we've talked about quite a few times on this program. This one is called The Gray Wolf, and this is a review that was done by Pamela Kramer in October of 2024. It's a brand new book. Here's the plot. First, we begin with the reviewer's comments. As much as I adore Louise Penny's Armand Gamache series, and as much as I love The Gray Wolf, which we've waited 2 years to read, dare I admit that I'm furious. What she has done with this breathtaking novel that twists upon itself as much as the rivers and lakes of Quebec do is to leave us with a cliffhanger. Now we must wait a year to find out what the next mystery will bring. However, she says, I'm not suggesting that anyone wait a year to read this book. When I use the adjective breathtaking, I meant it on several levels. It's a masterpiece of meticulous planning because of the many characters and the breadth of the settings. It's breathtaking because the action flows to a startling crescendo by the end. We find the events so riveting that we turn page after page, certain that there is no way Gamache, much less the others, much less Quebec, much less the world, will come out unscathed. Now, The Gray Wolf opens with a mysterious set of phone calls that Gamache refuses to answer. To make sure we understand how jarring they are, Penny contrasts the ringing of his phone with the peaceful Sunday morning at Three Pines. In this idyllic small village, everyone knows each other, and the bistro serves delicious meals, hot chocolate, coffee, and scrumptious pastries in front of a roaring fire. It's summer, and while Gamache is trying to enjoy the peace and beauty of his backyard setting, the wind in the forest and the bumble of bees, the phone keeps ringing, interrupting the serenity of his morning. Now, when he finally answers, what he says will become an important part of the story. Gamache is rattled. Those of us who have read any of the previous books know that he's a supremely admirable person. He's honorable, intelligent, clever, and brilliant when it comes to reading people. Penny explains that his entire department had been hand-picked, not from the top of the heap, but from the bottom. To his colleagues' amusement, Chief Inspector Gamache had, in effect, gone dumpster diving for his agents, chosen men and women on the verge of being tossed out. Well, it's no wonder that in the acknowledgments Penny mentions the brilliant show Slow Horses, but because his agents owe their career to Gamache, they work diligently for him as he does for them. His 2 seconds in command are Isabelle Lacoste and Jean-Guy Beauvoir, the latter of whom also is his son-in-law. They would give their lives for him without hesitation, as he would for them. We know from the start that Gamache must uncover a mysterious plot, but true to Penny's ability to weave a story with a web of suspects that stretches from Rome to Quebec to a remote monastery on a lake where wolves roam, he doesn't know whom he can trust or turn to, except for Isabelle and Jean-Guy. The purpose of the mysterious crime that is in the works is to destabilize Canada and allow a coup d'etat, a takeover of power, in which the military would ensure that democracy falls and a dictator is in control. Now, Penny writes, all authority breaks down. Businesses were vandalized. Misinformation, conspiracy theories are everywhere, often planted by the terrorists. People don't know what to believe, what to do, who to turn to for help, who to trust. There's chaos. Imagine a sudden, all-encompassing, catastrophic event that we do to ourselves. That's what the terrorists want. Not the deaths of a few hundred or even a few thousand. They want us to turn on each other, to do to each other what they cannot. They want anarchy. This language becomes especially frightening when we consider that some connected to today's politicians have advocated for anarchy, the destruction of the American government, and a ruthless dictator. Now, throughout the novel, we are caught between 2 extremes. Penny seems to delight in sharing the beauty of Canada's wilderness, its forests, and its shoreline. But we see that those beautiful scenes also can be deadly. One character is at the shore and thinking about how the waves had always been a calming sound. But now she heard the violence of it. It was now the sound of relentless despair. The serene Edenic village of Three Pines contrasts with the violence that takes place there. In a sanctuary, nature at her most lovely contrasts harshly with humankind at its worst. This startles and enthralls us, because that's what Penny does. Now, in this story especially, we truly don't know who the good and bad guys are. Gamache isn't sure either, and his resultant inability to request help in stopping this huge criminal plot is a tremendous handicap. He can't trust any of his superiors, and he doesn't know if the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, or any of those in the highest levels of government are in on the scheme. Penny keeps us in this incredible tension almost to the end. Will tens of thousands of people die because Gamache didn't figure out the diabolical plot in time? Will the Canadian government be taken over by a dictator? Will Gamache and his family be murdered in the cover-up after the coup succeeds? Well, you'll have to read The Gray Wolf to find out. Newcomers will be fine as Louise Penny provides enough backstory to make it all work. But be prepared to fall in love with the characters, the Three Pines setting, and the intricate, deliciously malevolent plot that she masterminds. You will be caught in its web right up to the very last page. So that was a review that was written in October of 2024 by Pamela Kramer. It is a brand new book by Louise Penny, and it's called The Gray Wolf. Now here's a new book by Kristen Harper. This one is called Summer at Hope Haven. Here's the plot. Making her way up the cedar-lined driveway, tears fill her eyes at the sight of the cottage's faded trim and peeling turquoise shutters. Taking a deep breath, she grasps the heart-shaped iron door handle and steps inside the once happy childhood home she's been avoiding. It is time to face up to the past. When Emily's fiancé walks out on her while she's still grieving the loss of her family in a terrible accident, she escapes back to Hope Haven on the remote dune island where her family vacationed every summer. Emily hopes that fixing up the house will also mend her broken heart, but the cottage holds more than just bittersweet childhood memories. Emptying her father's antique writing desk, Emily finds a letter that reveals a devastating secret about her parents. With a head full of questions that can never be answered, it seems like returning to the island was the worst decision Emily ever made, until she meets Lucas Socorro, salt water dripping from his dark curls after a surf session. As they take long walks on the soft sand and talk late into the firefly-lit night, Emily wonders if Dr. Luke, as the kids in the hospital call him, could be the one to help her heal. With Luke holding her hand and delving into her family's painful past, it's a little bit easier. Painting the gloomy cottage walls the color of seashells and revamping her grandmother's flea market furniture, Emily starts to feel she might call Dune Island home for good, and that she could build that home right here with Luke. But when Emily's family's secret spreads through a network of local gossips, her fragile heart breaks all over again. Luke is the only one who could have started the rumors. Was she wrong to trust him so easily? As the sun sets behind the dunes, Emily has a difficult decision to make. Does she pack her bags and leave the island for good, or take a risk that Hope Haven has everything she's been looking for? The book is called Summer at Hope Haven, and it's by the popular author Kristen Harper. And you're listening to Heard Any Good Books Lately, an exclusive production of the North Carolina Reading Service. I'm George Douglas. Thank you so much for tuning in to the program today. Now we're going to turn to another book by Freida McFadden, the second one on this program today. This is entitled The Boyfriend. Here's the plot. I have a new addiction, and it's Freida McFadden's psychological thrillers. This is another review by Ray Palin that was done just a couple of months ago, in late 2024. McFadden's latest effort, The Boyfriend, boasts her great pacing and a twisty plot that is often difficult to predict. I did catch the big twist in this one, or at least I thought I did, only to realize that she once again was 2 steps ahead of me. The prologue introduces us to Tom Brewer, a high school student from upstate New York. He talks about being in love with Daisy since he first spotted her at the age of 4. He is now having a burning desire to tell her how he feels and to put his hands around her white neck and squeeze the life out of her. We then jump to present-day New York City, where Sydney Shaw has been looking for Mr. Right on the popular dating app Cinch. Now, in her early 30s, she is nowhere close to finding love, and her next prospect will continue that streak. Not only is Kevin inappropriate and callous during their first dinner date, he comes on way too strong while walking her home afterwards. Sydney lies about her apartment building, not wanting him to know where she lives. When she attempts to enter the bogus location, he gets physical with her and tosses her into a garbage can. She has a bleeding disorder and thus begins to bleed profusely from her head. A young man witnesses the incident and puts a stop to it. He chases Kevin off and sees to Sydney's head as he tells her he's a doctor. She gets home in one piece, but realizes she never found out who this mystery man was. Sydney's best friends are Bonnie and Gretchen. Now, Bonnie lives in the same building as Sydney. The 3 of them attend yoga classes and generally hang out together. Gretchen is about to move in with her boyfriend, Randy, while Sydney remains single. Bonnie is dating a hot doctor and getting serious with him, but tragedy strikes when Sydney and Randy enter Bonnie's apartment and find her lifeless body. She has been murdered in her own bed. It turns out the lead detective in Sydney's is Sydney's ex, Jake. She gets past that initial awkwardness to help with the case as much as she can. Jake and the NYPD are unable to locate Bonnie's boyfriend, as it turns out that all of his texts came from a burner phone. Sydney continues to be stalked by the extremely creepy Kevin, while she moves forward looking for other suitable partners on Cinch. When she goes out with a nice guy named Travis, he literally faints at the table when she gets an extremely bloody nose. Fortunately for them, the man who saved her from Kevin happens to be there and gets her a replacement shirt after the squeamish Travis bails on the date. At least now Sydney can get his name, Tom Brown. Well, you might be nodding your head at this point, believing you have it all figured out. Trust me, you don't. The chapters set in the past with Tom Brewer are intense and involve murder, missing high school girls, and a creepy friend with an affinity for bugs. I will not reveal anything else because everything in this story is vital to the plot that McFadden has laid out for us. Sydney continues to see Tom, but slowly the aura of his perfection begins to fade, starting with the fact that his last name is Brewer, not Brown. Don't jump to any conclusions, as there is so much more at play here. I must marvel at how enjoyable Freida McFadden's novels are, and The Boyfriend is no exception. McFadden is easily one of the most clever authors working today, and I hope her dynamic imagination does not slow down anytime soon. Now, that is a review by Ray Palin in October of 24. This is a new book called The Boyfriend by Freida McFadden. And as we get near the end of the program for today, let's take a look at a popular book by a very popular author, James Patterson, along with Emily Raymond, and this one is called Raised by Wolves. The police respond to the arrival of two teens at the grocery store. They don't speak English. They don't speak at all. They're brother and sister, and for all anybody can tell, they've been raised in the forest. Two teens appear out of nowhere, ransacking a small-town grocery and attacking the police officers who come to investigate. Their clothes are torn and filthy, their hands and bare feet calloused. They have fangs. Their sister and brother, alone against the world. Where did they come from? Raised by wolves, they say. Kai and Holo are taken in by the police chief and his wife and begin adjusting to life in a small town. They're attending school and going on dates. But humans, they find, are the most vicious animals of all. And the mystery of their upbringing brings dark and powerful forces to Kokanee Creek, tearing the town apart and threatening the lives of everyone they love. How will the wolves survive? How will Kai and Holo? A question that will be answered only if you read or listen to this new book called Raised by Wolves, and it's by James Patterson and Emily Raymond. And that's just about all the time we have for this month's edition of Heard Any Good Books Lately. I'm George Douglas. I hope you enjoyed the program today. If you'd like more information about how to become a patron of the State Library of North Carolina, accessible books, and library services, simply Google or search for Accessible Books, North Carolina Library. Or you can call toll-free 888-388-2460. That's 888-388-2460. Now, you can also use those same numbers and website to join the Friends of the State Library of North Carolina, Accessible Books and Library Services. It is that wonderful volunteer organization that sponsors this monthly feature on books. This program is intended for people who are blind or print impaired. Heard Any Good Books Lately will be available right after the broadcast at our website, ncreadingservice.org. So long until next time.